Greetings. Father Mark signing on with the next installment of Mississippi Minutes, a series of short videos in tribute to the Great River and Catholicism in the states along the river. Last time, we covered the discovery of the mouth of the Mississippi River from the sea by French-Canadian brothers Pierre and Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne, better known by their titles Iberville and Bienville. Today, we continue by following what they left behind as permanent settlements. Pierre Lemoyne, Iberville, the elder of the brothers, returned to France to recruit colonists and raise capital to continue building up the area. He did that a few times, but at the last one, he contracted yellow fever before he was able to return. This left his younger brother Jean-Baptiste, Bienville, to fulfill the plan. One result was the first location of Mobile, Alabama, in 1702, 27 miles upriver from the bay, asserting French ownership of the present-day Alabama. The Spanish had first explored it from Florida, but they had exerted no effort to colonize, so the Spanish considered it Florida. So they considered all the way to Louisiana to be Florida. That's why even in those from Louisiana know we have the Florida parishes, in the eastern side of the state. That's a historical memory of that. Anyway. As there were times, even though France and Spain were both Catholic, there were times that they were enemies. Times they were allies, times they were enemies. So the Lemoyne brothers, by establishing the settlements in the future Alabama and Mississippi, were asserting French control over what the Spanish claimed as part of Florida. They put a fort there, Fort Louis de la Mobile. The site is, the original site of Mobile is the current Lemoyne, Alabama, the family name of Pierre and Jean-Baptiste, on the Mobile River in the Mobile-Tensaw River Delta. That settlement served as the capital of French Louisiana from 1702 until 1711, when the capital was relocated downriver to where the Mobile River enters Mobile Bay, and that is the present site of the city of Mobile, Alabama. In terms of Catholicism, ecclesiastical jurisdiction resided with the Bishop of Quebec in Canada. Sacramental life was provided by a Jesuit priest, Paul Deroux, whom Jean-Baptiste Lemoyne installed in a chapel serving the fort on the Mobile River. The following year, July 20th, 1703, the Bishop of Quebec elevated that chapel in Old Mobile to the status of a parish. That may just seem a different word, but in church, canonically, that makes a difference. A parish is considered to be a permanent foundation. It's required to keep sacramental records, which is valuable historically. Making it, it was originally Our Lady of Mobile, so making it that the first canonical parish in the French Louisiana territory, which, remember, went from the Gulf to the Great Lakes. This is the remote ancestor, canonically, although the location changed, but canonically is the ancestor of the present cathedral of the Archdiocese of Mobile, the Cathedral of the Immaculate Conception. 1706, the first martyrdom in Louisiana, introduces us to Père, a father, Reverend, Jean-François Buisson Saint-Côme, the first North American-born missionary priest killed while carrying out his ministry. Jean-François was born on January 30th, 1667, in France. Discerning an ecclesiastical vocation, Jean-François entered seminary in Quebec and was ordained in 1690. He was what would later be called a diocesan priest. That's what I am, which is distinct from members of religious orders that we met earlier, the Jesuits, the Franciscans, the Capuchins. So he was a priest of the Diocese of Quebec. I mean, that's, like I'm a priest of the diocese, Archdiocese of New Orleans. One of Jean-François' brothers also became a priest, named as Father Michael, and two of his sisters became nuns. Father Jean-François served first in Acadia, that's eastern Canada, serving the ancestors of the future Louisiana Cajuns. He served there until 1698, when the Le Moyne expedition left France to find the mouth of the Mississippi River. In 1698, Father Jean-François and two other priests were reassigned to develop parishes in the Mississippi River Valley south of the Great Lakes. So the previous priest and sacraments that we saw in that area were members of religious orders, Jesuits and Franciscans. So this is a diocesan bishop in Quebec who wants to establish permanent parishes, not just missions. Following the route pioneered by Père Marquette, the Jesuits, we covered that in a previous video, they made it to the river from the Great Lakes, from eastern Canada west to the Great Lakes, then around the Great Lakes, through the rivers, to the Mississippi. And they traveled from Quebec to Montreal, to Michigan, to Illinois, to Missouri, to Tennessee, to Arkansas. So exactly, as far as the Marquette expedition got. In the present-day Arkansas, so between Arkansas and Mississippi, but this happened on the Arkansas side of the river. The French group came upon an indigenous village that had been decimated by smallpox. Now, the disease etiology was not understood. It was microbiology, of course, was not understood. But it did not escape the notice of the Native Americans, the survivors, that mysterious diseases that killed a lot of their people manifested whenever these Europeans arrived. Open hostility and danger prompted the French group to continue downriver. But the episode was a portent for what's going to happen. Father Jean-François went downriver, made his base among the Natchez on the Mississippi side, the other side from Arkansas, Mississippi side of the Mississippi River. From there, he followed the river creeks, bayous, trying to build a network of missions that could grow into parishes, be like, parishes of the Diocese of Quebec, because that's what his bishop sent him to do. In 1706, during one of these expeditions, Father Jean-François and four companions, who were lay Catholics, landed. They went to the other side of the river, the Louisiana side of the river, and following the Mississippi, it landed in the vicinity of the present Donaldsonville, Louisiana, which is on the west bank of the Mississippi River, so the other side of the river, among the Chitimacha Native Americans. Unfortunately, of course, they couldn't know this, but they just got off literally got out of their boats, and they walked into an atmosphere of hostility like that they had encountered years earlier in Arkansas, and they were just killed immediately. I mean, there was no missionary, no preaching, none of that. They were just attacked and killed by a barrage of arrows, making Father Jean-François de Buisson the first priest born in North America to suffer martyrdom in the course of his ministry. In 1714, a settlement was established that has the unusual name, at least to outsiders, of Natchitoches. And the phonetics do not at all correspond to the spelling. So Natchitoches is spelled Natchitoches. Now, it was not established on the Mississippi. It was established on the Red River, which is a tributary. It empties into the Mississippi, like other rivers we've seen, like the Arkansas, the Missouri, the Ohio, the Illinois, the Wisconsin. It was established by another French-Canadian explorer who was related to the Le Moyne family by marriage. His name was Louis Juchereau de Saint-Denis. Natchitoches was envisioned as a trading post because it was on one river that connected to the Mississippi, which connected to many other rivers, and also the Gulf. So the trade would be the French who settled there with the local indigenous group, which was the Caddo Indians, as well as the Spanish in Texas on the other side of the Sabine River. Now, even though it doesn't look it, Natchitoches was named for the Caddo Indians, the place to trade with the Caddo. The French called the settlement in their correspondence, among themselves, Jean-Baptiste, the fort, named for the fort, Saint Jean-Baptiste. Natchitoches turns out to be the oldest continuously occupied settlement, on the same site, within the present borders of the state of Louisiana. So sorry to my fellow native New Orleanians. New Orleans was not the first. 2 years later, 1716, the Spanish established a sister settlement to Natchitoches, but theirs is in Texas, but also named for the Caddo, because they would be trading with the French through Caddo territory. And the Spanish call theirs Natchitoches, so Natchitoches and Natchitoches. And it was envisioned, Natchitoches, Texas, which is still there, was envisioned as to be a neutral site for trade with French Louisiana, using the Caddo Indians as intermediaries. The Spanish call their outpost after Our Lady Guadalupe de los Natchitoches. On September 1st, 1715, King Louis XIV of France died after a reign of 72 years. Not a life, but a reign. He has reigned as king for 72 years. He outlived so many of his heirs that the next king, Louis XV, was actually his great-grandson. The heir was only 5 years old, so a regency governed France until 1723. The regency was led by the late king's nephew, Philippe, who had the title the Duc d'Orléans, and New Orleans was named for him. 3 years later, 1718, Jean-Baptiste Le Moyne, Bienville, established the city on the Mississippi at a high point, believe it or not, at a bend in the river where the wave, the current action deposited sediment, so it was actually above sea level. And he named it in honor of the regent, or the Duc d'Orléans, named it New Orleans, because there is an Orleans in France. That site is the present French Quarter. It was to assert and defend French domination over the Mississippi River, just as Mobile asserted French control over Alabama, and Fort Maurepas over Mississippi. It was to guard the river from British incursions from the Gulf. It was to provide a deep water port for trade in the products that were being grown in the Louisiana settlement: indigo, cotton, sugar. The following year, 1719, Jean-Baptiste recruited an engineer to lay out the plans for the city. His name was Adrien de Pouget. He arrived in New Orleans on March 29th, 1721, submitted his plans for the city to be a grid pattern for the Vieux-Carré, the French Quarter, laid out as 66 squares in a geometric parallelogram. How that settlement developed into historic importance in both church history and secular history will be the subject of the next video. Thank you for your attention. Our Lady of Prompt Succor, patroness of Louisiana, hasten to help us.